Somalia has long ranked as the world's most corrupt country. Plagued by decades of civil war, terrorism, and weak governance, the nation lacks a stable central government capable of enforcing laws. Power lies mainly in the hands of warlords, clan leaders, and militant groups who often act outside any legal framework. Bribery, embezzlement, and fraud are common at all levels, from local markets to what little remains of national institutions. Foreign aid, meant to help Somalia rebuild, often disappears into private accounts. Ordinary citizens face daily extortion, and even basic services like healthcare and education often require bribes. In Somalia, corruption isn't just a problem, it's a way of life. South Sudan became the world's newest country in 2011, but dreams of prosperity quickly faded. Political elites have diverted billions in oil revenues and international aid, leaving most citizens impoverished. The country is trapped in cycles of civil war, fueled by ethnic divisions and power struggles. Government accountability is virtually non-existent. Money meant for schools, hospitals, and infrastructure is regularly stolen. Investigations have revealed top officials living in luxury abroad while the country suffers from hunger and disease. Despite international pressure for reform, corruption remains deeply entrenched, blocking any path toward genuine peace and development. Years of brutal civil war have turned Syria into one of the most corrupt nations on earth. Under Bashar al-Assad's regime, corruption is deeply institutionalized. Military officers, bureaucrats, and politicians enrich themselves by exploiting citizens through bribes, illegal seizures, and black market deals. Essential goods like food and fuel are controlled by powerful elites who profit from scarcity. International sanctions have only intensified internal smuggling and profiteering. Ordinary Syrians must often pay bribes just to survive, to pass a checkpoint, get medical care, or keep their homes. In Syria, war and corruption feed off each other, crushing any hope for recovery. Once one of Latin America's richest countries, Venezuela has collapsed under the weight of corruption and mismanagement. Successive governments, especially under Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, used oil wealth to build political loyalty instead of sustainable infrastructure. Billions of dollars have disappeared through embezzlement, rigged contracts, and fraudulent public projects. Today, Venezuela suffers from hyperinflation, food shortages, and mass migration. Powerful military and political figures control black markets for basic goods, while ordinary citizens queue for hours for necessities. Efforts to expose or combat corruption are met with harsh crackdowns, silencing journalists and activists. Venezuela's crisis is a textbook example of how corruption can destroy a nation. Yemen's descent into chaos has been driven by both war and rampant corruption. Even before the civil war, bribery and embezzlement were common in government institutions. Today, rival factions, from the Houthi rebels to the internationally recognized government, exploit aid shipments, control markets, and demand illicit payments from civilians. Billions in humanitarian aid have gone missing or been diverted to fund militias. Ordinary Yemenis must navigate a broken system where survival often depends on paying off corrupt officials or smugglers. The suffering is immense. Millions face famine while leaders enrich themselves amid the ruins of the state. Decades of conflict have made Afghanistan a breeding ground for corruption. During the American and NATO occupation, billions of dollars flowed into reconstruction efforts, much of which was stolen or wasted. Corruption runs through every layer of Afghan society. Police officers demand bribes, judges sell verdicts, and politicians pocket foreign aid. The Taliban's return to power has not improved the situation. Reports suggest that illicit taxation, drug trafficking, and bribery continue unchecked. For ordinary Afghans, corruption is not just an inconvenience. It's a matter of life and death, deciding whether they receive justice, medical care, or even basic safety. In North Korea, corruption is woven into the very fabric of daily life. The totalitarian regime under Kim Jong-un controls all legal economic activity, forcing many citizens into a dangerous grey market economy to survive. Officials routinely demand bribes to look the other way or to provide access to food, travel permits, or better jobs. Even within the government, loyalty is often secured not by competence but through secret payments and favours. Foreign aid, when it arrives, is often siphoned off by elites, rather than reaching the people who need it most. In North Korea, corruption isn't a flaw in the system. It is the system. Sudan's political landscape has been dominated by corruption for decades, especially during the 30-year rule of Omar al-Bashir. Massive amounts of public funds were stolen or misused to maintain political power and suppress dissent. Even after Bashir's ousting in 2019, corruption remains entrenched in the military and bureaucratic elite. Attempts at democratic reform have been slow and often sabotaged by those who benefit from the current system. Oil revenues and other national resources are regularly plundered, leaving millions without access to basic services. Until Sudan can dismantle these networks of corruption, hopes for stability and prosperity will remain distant. Equatorial Guinea is one of Africa's richest countries per capita, at least on paper. Fueled by vast oil reserves, the country should be thriving. Instead, wealth is concentrated in the hands of a tiny political elite, particularly the family of President Teodoro Obiang Nguema, who has ruled since 1979. Investigations have revealed staggering personal fortunes amassed from state coffers, including luxury homes, exotic cars, and private jets. Meanwhile, the majority of citizens live in extreme poverty, with limited access to clean water, education, or healthcare. Corruption in Equatorial Guinea is not hidden. It is flaunted, a daily insult to its people. Following the fall of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011, Libya plunged into chaos, becoming a hotbed for corruption and lawlessness. Competing governments and militias control different parts of the country, each extracting bribes and controlling black market economies. Oil, Libya's greatest asset, is routinely exploited for personal gain rather than national development. Public services barely function, and for most Libyans, paying off officials is the only way to get basic documents, medical care, or security. International efforts to stabilize Libya have been repeatedly undermined by leaders who prefer short-term personal profit over long-term national unity. In Libya, corruption has become both a weapon and a way of life. Corruption is not just a political problem. It steals futures, deepens poverty, and leaves nations broken. But recognizing it is the first step toward change. Around the world, activists, journalists, and everyday citizens continue the fight against corruption, even when the odds seem impossible, because without accountability, there can be no justice. And without justice, there can be no peace.